Okay, so this week I'm going to start with a quote. The moment you doubt whether you can fly, you cease forever to be able to do it. Peter Pan. Now, I chose this quote because I started thinking about belief this week and really about our ability to believe in ourselves. Now, one thing that I'm realizing is that deep down, we really don't believe in ourselves. Or I'm going to challenge you to consider this, and I'm going to challenge you to look deep down and to think about this question. Do you really believe in yourself? And I think that the answer is no for most people. And I don't know where we learned this from or where this came from, but I believe that most people don't believe that they can do the things that they want to do or that they're capable of doing. I think most people have a sense of imposter syndrome. Like they're going to be caught at not being as good as everybody thinks that they are at something, right? And when you prepare for IELTS, this can kind of like bring that out in you, right? Because there's a lot writing on this. Now, when I think about this, I wonder like, where did it come from? And I want you to kind of think back to when you were a child and when somebody talked you out of something that you wanted to do. For me, I can remember it very clearly. I remember I was like 6 years old and I was on the school bus and I decided that I wanted to be a scientist. And I was on the bus and I told this girl, this neighbor girl who was like really cynical, really grumpy, really pessimistic. And me, my happy, exuberant self, I said, I want to be a scientist. And she told me, oh no, that's too hard. You can't do that. And I don't know why, but I believed her. And now I'm horrible at science and math. And probably because I told myself the story my whole life that I couldn't do it. And so I didn't even try. Now, today, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to tell you the story of how I started my podcast and why I think that you should start your IELTS prep, just like I started my podcast, even though I didn't fully believe in myself. Okay, let's jump in. I'm Kristen Espinar, an IELTS coach turned podcaster. I've spent 15 years traveling the world and helping students prepare for official exams and focus on building academic English skills so that they will be successful on their exam and in their lives after the IELTS exam. I created the Activate Your IELTS podcast to help give you simple and actionable tips and strategies to help you do the same. If you are an IELTS candidate determined to get a 7+ band score in writing and speaking skills, you are in the right place. Let's jump in. Hey there. Before we begin, make sure to download the IELTS Writing and Speaking Study Plan that I have created for you. It's really important to treat your IELTS prep like a project, starting with a clear goal date so that you can create a timeline and make sure to hit all the points that are necessary for you to get a 7+ band score. In order to help you with this, I've created a Get Started with Your IELTS Writing and Speaking Study Plan, and it's really meant to help you get on the right track right away. Download it for free at www.kristenespinar.com/study-plan, or just click the link in the episode notes. Okay, so today I hope you'll indulge me a little bit, and I'm going to kind of go behind the scenes and talk to you a little bit about how and why I started the podcast. So my whole life, I never really thought that I had a voice, or I never really thought about that what I had to say really was important. But, along the way, I developed skills and I became an English instructor I lived abroad. I traveled abroad. I taught ESL. I did my degree in applied linguistics. I really focused on exam preparation. I developed skills in something. So I did have something to say about this topic, and I did get pretty good at teaching English, and I had a lot to share. When I had children, I decided that I wanted to be more flexible in my work, and I decided to start an online company teaching English. But I soon realized a couple of things. I realized, number one, you can't just like teach English online by yourself. It's kind of hard to like market, right? Like it's easier to market yourself if you choose a niche. So I was thinking like, what do I do? I like pronunciation, I like accent reduction, but I also like exam preparation. So I thought about it for a long time and I decided, I'm going to start teaching how to prepare for IELTS, right? Now, I don't work for IELTS. I'm not affiliated with IELTS, none of that. But I have a very strong background in exam preparation for all types of Cambridge exams. And, I decided like, let me also do this IELTS certification course. So I did my little IELTS certification. And then I was like, okay, where are my students? But when you teach online, you don't have students like find you very easily, right? It's not like you have a store or an academy that people can come to, right? It's like actually kind of hard to be found online. So then I realized like I needed to start using my voice a little bit more. But I wasn't sure what to do. Now my husband, he works in marketing and he still to this day is saying you need to do YouTube. But I didn't really want to. Like it seemed like such a production, right? And I didn't have time to do production or like look perfect or like edit subtitles and make titles and make it visually perfect. Like I'm not good at visual stuff. I don't really like visual stuff. So I kind of didn't want to mess with that. And I didn't really want to like write a blog either, right? It seemed like a lot of work to do and I didn't really know how to do it. And actually I like to write, but I just didn't really want to be writing a blog. And then like all of a sudden people started saying like start a podcast. And I don't know who was saying it. Maybe it was just because I was listening to podcasts and everyone was saying start a podcast. But I decided like maybe I should start a podcast. And everybody was like, really? You want to start a podcast? And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I'm sure. Now, I didn't know, if people wanted to hear what I had to say. And I don't think that I believed that people wanted to hear what I had to say. In fact, when I first started my business and I was complaining to my husband and I said like, I don't know where to find students. I don't know how to find them. He told me like, you've got to become like Grammar Girl. If you guys don't know who Grammar Girl is, she's got like a podcast, a blog, and it's all about grammar and it's really good. So I would recommend listening to that. But I remember like thinking about Grammar Girl, who seemed really famous to me. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be Grammar Girl, right? And so like that thought was just something that seemed impossible to me, right? That anybody would really care what I had to say or anybody would follow me or, anybody would be interested in following me and listening to what I had to say. So when I started the podcast, I was like, well, let me just try it. Now, one great thing about myself, if I can toot my own horn, and that's a good phrase to use actually on IELTS speaking, meaning like say good things about yourself. So one great characteristic about myself is that I will definitely try new things. I will take risks and I won't waste any time doing like thinking about it. I will take action right away. And I think this is really to my benefit. And I think that this is something that you should think about cultivating. It's a big mistake that I see with students is that they get hung up on perfectionism. I've never been hung up on perfectionism. I'm way more like I just want to jump in and learn as I go. And I'm like, once I decide on something, I'm super excited about it. And I just want to start doing it. I don't even want to like take the time to learn how to do it. I just want to start doing it. And what that means is like, I don't care if it's perfect. I don't care if it's messy. I don't care if there's mistakes, right? For me, that's how I learn best because I know that I can fix those mistakes. I can make it better. I can reach perfection through doing those things. And I actually want you to do that as well with your IELTS. I know that there's a lot of things that are holding you back, right? You're probably telling yourself, like, I'm not ready. I don't have the English level. I don't have the vocabulary, right? But jumping in and doing it is how you get ready. It's the key to getting ready. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be messy, right? But you will never take action on your dream. You will never get to your dream if you don't take that action, right? So back to the podcast. So I remember when I started the podcast, I had no idea what I was doing, but I just Googled it, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to do it like now. So, like, there's some tech to it. So I kind of had to figure that out. And I just kind of Googled everything. And the hardest part was like getting on iTunes. But I remember when I recorded my first episode, and I probably shouldn't tell you this because now you'll probably go back and listen to it. And that episode is like, I'm sure, terrible. In fact, I won't ever listen to my first episode ever again. But what I did was I got so nervous, I wrote it all out, right? And then I went into my children's room because they were home and it was nighttime and they were trying to go to sleep. I had to find but they were asleep in our room, so I had to find like a quiet spot. And I went into their room and I like kind of shakingly recorded this podcast. And I think I just read it all. I definitely did not do a good job. So definitely do not go back and listen to it. But so I recorded it and then without thinking about it, right? I didn't edit it. I didn't think about it. I didn't like stop and tell myself like you shouldn't do this. In fact, I didn't think anybody would listen at all, really. So I just like uploaded it and kind of figured out the tech for iTunes, which was the hardest part. And then I got it going and then I forgot about it, right? But I made the commitment that I was going to do it each week and I still have that commitment. Even right now, I'm sick. My throat, like I haven't been able to speak all week. I was almost not going to do the episode, but then I was like, I've got to do my episode. So I did it. And I knew that I made this commitment to doing it each week, right? And it was a small commitment, but it was what I could do. And I want you also to do that for your prep, right? I want you to set a goal. For you, it's going to be a shorter goal than mine, but it's going to be maybe 3 months, 12 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, whatever the time that it is that you have to prepare for this exam. And I want you to prepare for it. I want you to set your goal. And then I want you to set like some commitment that you can make to it each week. So whatever that is, like if that's just showing up once a week to do prep, that's a good place to start. And that's what you can do, right? You have to do something that's achievable. You have to make a commitment and then you have to take action on that commitment. So make a commitment that you are able to do and then just do it and just hold yourself accountable to it, just like I have for the past 2.5 years. Now, with the podcast, I never knew, like with podcasts, there's like just not that much information on like numbers or statistics or anything like that. So I never really knew if the podcast was like going well or not, because when you talk on a podcast, you're just like recording in a room and not really connecting with anybody, and you're just kind of like recording it and then seeing if anybody listens. And you kind of do that, right? You like record and forget about it, right? So I was recording and forgetting about it, and each week just kind of doing it. And I wasn't really paying attention to my numbers. I didn't know what was good or what wasn't. But I remember I went to a podcast conference and I thought, if I'm going to be a podcaster, let me go to this podcast conference. And there, first of all, what I saw was most of the people at the conference all wanted to start a podcast, but they didn't have a podcast yet. So like 70% of the people wanted to start one, but they didn't have one yet. And that's kind of like, I feel like a lot of my audience here is like that. They know that they need to start their IELTS prep, but they haven't done it yet. And they have all these things that are holding them back, right? Needing to be perfect, or saying like, I don't have the time to do it, or my vocabulary isn't good enough, whatever it is. It's an excuse, because you don't have to be those things to do it. You just have to make a simple commitment like I did each week. And you can start slow. You can start with whatever you can, and you can do it. But all these people were here and they like had been waiting years to start a podcast and they never did. right? And who knows if they have still. But like that's the most common story that I was hearing time and time again. But I also found out at this podcast conference kind of like the measures of a good podcast, like the statistics, like comparing other podcasts, like where your podcast is at compared to others, what percentage you're at. And I saw that it was already doing pretty good, right? Not amazing, but doing pretty good. And then that feedback gave me the motivation to go further, because sometimes we are in a place where we don't know how well we are doing, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, if we're actually doing good at all. And I had a student who we actually just talked about this. He was doing amazing, but he was telling himself these same things that a lot of students tell themselves, which is like, I can't do it, or, I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough. But he had no comparison. And here I was telling him, you are doing well, you are doing amazing. You're coming in very strong and you're learning these techniques very quickly. And all of a sudden, he got perspective and realized that he was on track, just like I realized with my podcast. So, what I want you to do, what I want you to take away from the lesson today is kind of think about your IELTS prep like I thought about my podcast, which is like, I know you probably don't believe that you can do it. But first of all, I want you to believe that you can do it, that you have a bigger future out there for you, and that you have to take these steps to get there. So I want you to build this like deeper belief in yourself. And I want you to know that you actually can do more than you think you can. Like with me, I didn't really know that people wanted to listen to what I had to say, but it turns out they did. It turns out my advice was helpful for them, right? Just like you, like maybe you don't know what is waiting for you after the IELTS exam, but something big is, right? And I don't want you to let these things like perfectionism or procrastination or just telling yourself that you're not good enough, I don't want that to get in your way of achieving those dreams. I want you to realize it's okay to step in messy. It's okay to not do it perfectly. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be perfect already. You gain perfection through trial and error. And that's where I want you to start. I want you to take action, right? Make a small commitment, whatever you can, whatever works for you. Some people can commit to every day. Some people can commit just once a week. But I want you to make that commitment to yourself. I want you to believe in yourself that you can do it. And I want you to take that first step and take action. Okay, guys, I hope my podcast story was helpful for you. I hope the lessons that I've learned in my podcast are something that you can apply to your IELTS prep. And if you want to take one simple action today, I would recommend downloading my free writing and speaking plan. You can go to kristinespinard.com/study-plan. I'll put it in the episode notes as well, because I think that that's going to be a great place for you to start and help you take a little bit of action each week. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for indulging me in my podcast story. It's been fantastic to connect with you, and I'd love to hear more about you and your stories. So feel free to find me on Facebook or Instagram and tell me a story about you in a time that you didn't believe in yourself and how you turned it around. Okay, guys. Have an awesome week.